This summer, Prime Video takes you back before Legally Blonde, before law school, and into the world of Elle Woods in high school. Set in 1995, this Gemini vegetarian knows exactly who she is until her family moves from Bel Air to Seattle. Packed with iconic fashion, 90s nostalgia, and a throwback soundtrack, Elle proves one thing. Law school was hard. High school was harder. From the world of Legally Blonde, watch Elle, a new original series only on Prime Video. Watch now.
The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire, the no-show. Who set you back because they didn't show up on day one, or day two, or ever again. And now your product launch is delayed because you're talking to alien abduction podcasters to track them down. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can help make sure your next hire sticks. In fact, businesses who use LinkedIn are 24% less likely to reopen a role in the next 12 months. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
Welcome to Why We Roll,
a tabletop role-playing game design podcast by the Stillfleet Studio.
We're your hosts, Chris Pickett, creator of the historical fantasy game Dance Macabre,
And Wythe Marshall, creator of the political sci-fi game Stillfleet.
Through the show, we hope to amplify new creative voices.
We chat with different indie TTRPG designers, talking through a range of questions that are pertinent to many designers, players, and GMs.
We hope to showcase fresh and even challenging ideas about what makes imagination-based games so powerful.
Before we introduce today's guest, a reminder. If you enjoy this episode, please consider supporting the show and all of our games over at patreon.com/Stillfleet.
Okay, let's find out why we roll.
Welcome back to Why We Roll. It's the tabletop game design podcast of Stillfleet Studio. I'm Wythe Marshall, and as ever, I'm joined by...
Hey, me, Chris Pickett. Hi. How's it going, everybody? Thanks for tuning in once again.
Hey, Chris. How you been?
Oh, hey, Wythe. I didn't see you there. I'm good, man. I'm good. Settling into life down in the South after a big move, but things are good. We're back to recording regularly, so I'm happy.
Yeah. No, it's great. I heard you rode your barbecue car down, and now there's only one star in the sky. Yeah. And instead of water, it's what's the beer in Austin that everybody drinks? Anyway,
well, for a long time it was Lone Star, but I don't know what the cool kids drink anymore.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Today we have on a guest who's actually an
relevant.
expert. But Hem, you tell us, do you know much about the Dallas Metroplex? The center of Texas?
You know what?
Hey,
no.
Don't dox me, bro. What the hell, dude?
It's an area with like 10 million people.
That's
right?
fine. Yeah, the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is certainly large enough. I mean, that's why I also always felt safe saying like New York City or even Brooklyn, because it's like, hey, I mean, anybody that really wants to find me can and will, but please don't. Please, nobody ever do that.
I have a similar thing. Like it's fairly obvious where I'm from. We talk about it a lot, right? So like, not only do I live in Iceland, I live on a tiny island off of Iceland, and there's only a couple of those. However, I'm not too worried if people kind of know roughly where we are, because it's anywhere between a 40-minute ferry, or at the moment, because the ferry is being balls, a 6-hour ferry. So you have to fly to Iceland and then figure out how to get what ferry and what time it's leaving, and then it's 6 hours to the island. By that point, you are so seasick. I will just be like, come in, let's give you a cup of tea, and then you can have a go at me, because I feel like you've gone through a lot of effort to be an asshole.
Take your Dramamine first, and then we can get into a screaming match about politics or whatever you feel like screaming at me about.
It's so funny to imagine that like right-wing troll kid, basement dweller trying to dox you, and he gets on the ferry and then just shows up at your door puking from the sea, and like freezing, and it just like, needs a granola bar and a hug.
We give all that things, and they feel really bad that we've been so kind to them.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, damn it. I should have just ordered pizza from the pizza place on here to your house like the old school trolls used to do it.
Well, yeah. Now in the United States, we have swatting, which is super fun. I hope that's not a thing in Iceland, but happens here.
Yeah. Well, on that cheery note,
yes.
Before we go any further with with doxing you and your little island that sounds like, a great place for a horror movie or a podcast studio. We're here with Hem Brewster of Blighthouse Studio Pods, who make a bunch of cool podcasts and actual play streams. And we're here to talk about TTRPG, actual play, podcast making, narrative podcast making, and some themes that we have touched on. We had on in some earlier seasons, Bad House RPG in New York, Mage Hand High Five in New York. So some of our buds, RP Jesters,
of course, in New York.
Yeah. But Hem is physically located apparently on this dangerous island.
On the island that Leif Erikson once called home.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's probably
incredibly
very nice.
dangerous island off of the coast of Iceland. And hilariously enough, there have been volcanic events on this island, albeit it was like 40 plus years ago. But it's fine. Don't worry about it.
That's pretty fantastic as far as like D&D tropes go. Balls of fire shooting into the air and such. So Hem, why don't you introduce
really
yourself in Blighthouse before we ask any fun questions? Yeah.
So I'm Hem Brewster. I am usually known on various actual plays and RPGs as Valonda, because that's just how I randomly started. I currently run The Lucky Die, which is a D&D actual play. The campaign has been going for about 9 years at this point, a single campaign. Well, actually, it's 3 campaigns in the same time span. Let's not talk about that chaos. And the finale for that's going to be in 2027. I also have a Call of Cthulhu actual play, which has been out for about 2 years. And that is, again, another homebrew, which is a plant-based apocalypse, which is awesome fun. And I'm actually about to, in 2 weeks' time, record another actual play, which is a zombie survival game based on the south coast of Iceland, and we're going to record the entire thing in a 2-week span and release every episode in October. Podcast making has basically become my life over the last couple of years, and I went full-time sort of middle of last year. We tell under our little umbrella, we are covered from Germany, Iceland, UK, various folks in the States, and as well as a couple of folks out in Sweden. We're a pretty big group. We all have fairly different strengths and talents, and mine is usually, cracking the whip and getting all the episodes out on time and published in the right place, and everybody has everything they need to do what they want to do at the right time. And we have a couple of actual plays, we have scripted audio dramas, and a few that are about to come, and we also have a couple of non-fiction shooting the shit kind of podcasts. So yeah, that's kind of what I do.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, you do so much. I mean, I can't believe that The Lucky Die has been going for 9 years. I mean, just even for, put aside the fact that you've been running between 1 and 3 campaigns simultaneously during that entire 9-year period, but just that it even still exists after that. I mean, it's wild to have that much longevity.
Yeah, it really is. Like when we started in 2017, we me and 2 of the other guys on the podcast, we'd actually been in the actual play world probably about a year at that point, but as players on a different show, and that show fell apart. We call that the podcast that shall not be named, because there were drama and we don't want to talk about it. So we kind of had our toes in the water a little bit there when we first started, but the other shows that started about the same time as us, or slightly before or slightly after, I went through and did a mega list of everyone we did ad swaps with, so that people could find the shows we'd been talking about. And the amount of shows from back in the day that no longer exist is heartbreaking, because we knew these people really well and life got in the way for them and they stopped producing shows. And they would often end not at the end, but halfway through an important arc, because they just didn't have the time or the inclination, or had been burnt out to actually continue doing it. So it was generally really sad to see the amount of shows that were still actively going. Yeah, and there's so few of us that have been going that long. Yeah, for sure. And maybe we can eventually get to a point where we can talk about how you and Blighthouse Studios have kind of had your longevity. How do you fight burnout? How do you, kind of keep going even when the world's falling apart around you? But before we get to that, we should probably rewind a little bit. One of our kind of traditional first questions on the show is just to ask you, Hem, how did you get into tabletop role-playing games? And I think also, how did you get into audio? How did you get into the podcasting scene? Was it something that started with TTRPGs and actual play, or is it something that was comorbid with it, shall we say? It was definitely a later addition to my existence. So when I was 14, I did play by post for him. Friends of mine at school had set one up in his own world, and we did play by post for many years. We were so obsessed, our little group, we played on Christmas Day when we were all at home in our own computers with dial-up modems and stuff. Like, this was the bomb for us. Then when that fell apart, there was a couple of months where we weren't playing, but a friend came back from university and was like, hey, I've got Dungeons & Dragons, do you want to play? I was like, of course we want to play. Why would we not want to play? This sounds like fun. And we played with them a bit, and then like we had our own home group established, continued playing D&D and whatnot. And just before 5e came out, or around the time that 5e came out, we had just finished a campaign, and I was like, hey, I want to play a role-playing game, but I want it to be in Fallout, because I love Fallout, and Fallout is incredible. And they were like, okay, cool. I was like, one of you guys should run it. They were like, nope, you find the system, you run it. I'm like, so I found a system, which is called Exodus. It was the old school Fallout RPG. It was meant to be the official Fallout RPG, but they lost the licensing rights for it, and there was a lot of drama going on. So they were like, well, screw this. They changed all the important names, and we ended up with Exodus, which is, in my opinion, not a great system. So we homebrewed the hell out of it to make it work for the game I wanted to play. And then we played Fallout for a year. Like I GM'd that. And it was incredible. And then after that, we started playing more home games. And as we started playing more home games, I was like, I really want to dive more into actual role playing, but my home group are a bunch of drunken louts, and there were 9 of us, so it's really hard to actually like really roleplay sessions. So I went to Reddit, one of the only few times I've ever been to Reddit in my life, and I saw a post that says, hey, looking for voice actors for an actual play podcast to play D&D. I'm like, I can pretend to do a voice. I've got this. So I applied. I got it. And yeah, that's how like I started in audio. It really wasn't anything more than I was looking for a game, and it just happened to be a game that was being like released in podcast form. And that's where I met Neil, who's the editor for basically everything we do at Blighthouse, but like 1 or 2 shows. And he's an incredible role player, fantastic musician. The other guy that came on from there was a guy named Arch, who's again an incredible GM. He's grown so much, and he's a really good player, and is now a writer in his own right. And I'm so proud of him. And we found other friends along the way to join us. So that's kind of like how we got to, you know, play by post to releasing our first episode in 2017.
Yeah, that's so cool and really interesting too. Actually, that's something I've not thought about. You know, like Wythe mentioned earlier, you know, we've picked at some themes, we've talked to some other AP folks, but yeah, the desire to actually role play and not to just be a murder hobo, not like to like really embody a character. Like I've never thought about that as a driving influence as to why people are interested in AP and why there are so many APs out there, you know, of varying qualities, you know, choose your own adventure. But I don't know. That's interesting to kind of noodle on. I've not thought about that before. I always think about it in terms of systems or things like that. But there is, like that real sense of wanting to be the character, embody the character, feels very strong there.
Yeah, it's kind of like, to me, one of the main differences between playing at home and playing for a performance, because when you are at home and say like there is a one-on-one session between the GM and the player because, you know, something important is happening to that particular character, you're asking the rest of the table to be essentially only observers for however long it takes you to get through that scene. And it could be anywhere from like a minute, and that's fine, like nobody reminds about that. But like if it's like a 20-minute conversation that's really deep to the character, like core and their motivations, you're asking your friends to drink, which is what we used to do on our home table, drink but not be able to enjoy in the fun, and that kind of like, it doesn't feel quite as nice to be able to like tell your friends, hey, can you like be quiet, can you not be in the peanut gallery, can you not enjoy this session the way that you want to, whereas like when you're doing an actual play, if you are trying to do like story, or you're trying to focus more on characters than you are necessarily the mechanics, you're allowed to tell the other players at the table to like, hey, can we just be quiet in the peanut gallery and let this character have their moment? It feels a lot less awkward because it's, even though you can play, and a lot of people do actual plays where it is pretty much table audio and there's very little editing done to it. If you treat it a little bit more seriously and you want the story to stand out more than necessarily the mechanics, you're allowed to, because it's a bit more of a business setting, and I use really big air quotes over that. It's a bit more of like we know we're telling a story for someone else to enjoy, and often that includes sometimes telling other people at the table, hey, either tone it down a little bit or be a little bit more gracious to other people at the table, because if you're dicking around at home with your friends, like who cares if you make it offhanded compliment? Like nobody minds. But if you're performing, it's slightly different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is also a question which we can come back to about the difference between live play of RPGs versus home play, and homebrewing for your friends versus homebrewing for an actual play, for an ongoing audio drama that arises from the RPG, versus straight audio drama, which I was going to ask, like, for example, with Counterbalance, one of your shows, if that is related to RPGs or just looks RPG-y to me. But it, you know, I know that there may be a mix there of shows that are written and performed and not using the RPG as the kind of tool to improvise and develop those characters and deepen those relationships and find that those surprising connections, which, you know, I find, obviously I'm a big fan of RPGs, and I think RPGs do all those tasks really, really well, but also sometimes they do go off the rails. And even with professionals, I mean, you just don't have that sort of control. It's not a script. So it's interesting if you have done, I'm sort of assuming here, but you've done multiple, you know, versions of this, to sort of hear how you like to kind of parse those differences, GMing, producing, you know, AP, and producing something that is scripted, and even if they're all sort of thematically, right, like similar.
So Counterbalance is written by Kessa Relenicki, who is our German contingent, also from the Philippines, and they started writing Counterbalance probably more than 10 years ago. It was probably around the time we started like TLD, and we didn't know each other. Like, you know, maybe we'd seen each other in the audio drama like Facebook group, maybe, but like I didn't really get to meet them until, you know, shortly after they'd almost finished writing the entirety of Counterbalance. And Counterbalance is a fantasy story. Like, it's got really nothing to do with role playing or anything like that, and Kessa itself, like, hadn't really done much role-playing until they joined us on The Sprouting, which was about 2 years ago, and it wasn't D&D we started them with, it was Call of Cthulhu, which is way more brutal. So, like, kind of like, and I actually did a really big breakdown on the differences between actual plays and scripted. Many years ago, there was a big hubbub and drama llamas in like the audio drama space of how actual plays are crap and they should never be included under the audio dramas thing because there's not enough work put into it. And I'm like, all right, let's go. And really kind of like the bigger difference is that, like, you know, in a scripted, you have to know everything. You have to know where the plot is going. You know where, you know, the themes are going. You have to pay it off properly. You have to know what's behind the door that you're opening, but you don't have to know behind the door that you're not going to choose to open. And that takes a lot of work and a whole lot of research. And the ability to script properly. Like, it's a skill set unto itself. Whereas something like an actual play, I could set up themes and ideas and the roll of a dice, screw it. I can write, you know, you see 2 doors ahead of you, left or right. I have to know what's behind both, or I have to know what's behind them when they blow a hole in the wall. Like, I have to be prepared for a bunch of stuff and be very quick improvising. And depending on your style of actual play, usually it's one shot. Like, it's the first thing out of my mouth is the thing that is canon. I don't often get to go back and redo stuff. Whereas a script, you can spend time making sure that everything fits perfectly. And like production wise, you know, we are dealing with multiple actors from multiple like locations and even countries, even languages at some point. And you have to get those different microphone tones and that different chemistry to work together when they aren't necessarily recording in the same room or even on the same call at the same time. And that is incredible skill and work to do. Versus something like an actual play, if you are recording, you are live with each other, may not necessarily be in the same room, but the chemistry flows and like the back and forth flows a lot more naturally, because it is more natural, it is more instinctual, it is more like off the cuff, whereas something that's scripted is not. And yeah, there are errors that you can make in an actual play and errors that you should not be making in an audio drama. So yeah, like the approach we have are kind of different. Like, we know ahead of time what we're going to have in a scripted piece. We don't necessarily know what we're going to have ahead of time for an actual play. So I can't really have any art done ahead of time because I don't know, for example, if my players blow a hole in the wall instead of going through the doors. But scripted, we know exactly what sound effects we need. We know the cast that we need ahead of time.
Yeah, that's a really useful breakdown. Maybe we can also get into some stories, some examples as we get into some of your pods, and hear how this has played out and some of the elements maybe you like, or even things related to system, like you said, like you've put some thought into 5e Call of Cthulhu, Exodus, nay, Fallout. And now basic role playing, right? So we can cover some of the biggies. Like on this show, we often start with new systems, new games, but I think it's fun to sort of hear how folks have been evolving with some of these bigger systems. Chris, did you have any questions before I just barrel ahead?
No, barrel on, brother. Do a barrel roll.
Like barrel
Bring it
roll.
on, let's go.
Yeah, well, I'm wondering if you could say a little about the writing aspect, because you've mentioned a couple times like homebrew and then people writing things and you're producing them. So maybe you could also just tell us a little more about a couple of the main pods here. So we have the Lucky Die, which is AP that's been going on forever, and that's 5e, right?
Yep.
And then Counterbalance is not AP, but it's also been going on for a while, it seems like. And then you're the Sprouting. This is the Plant Apocalypse one using Call of Cthulhu. Is that you? Am I right about that?
Yes. So when I run games, or when I think of like things I'd love to turn to script, I'm not a script writer, but things that I'd love to turn to scripts, I always fall back on apocalypse. I love the hell out of that. That can be a fantasy apocalypse. It can be set in reality, but an apocalypse. Like apocalypse, I am there. If it's good, I'm there for the concept. But yeah, like the Lucky Die is. We've all gone back in time. That's our apocalypse. So the Lucky Die is D&D 5e, an apocalypse where the gods are literally dying, and our heroes who start off in a prison. I hang them at the end of episode 2, and they basically these very flawed heroes have to figure out how to save the world, and stop the gods from dying. And that started with me saying, hey, I've got an idea. When the podcast that shall not be named we were previously on fell apart, I was lying. That came about, and yeah, that, you know, the Pantheon of Gods is essentially all homebrew, give or take a few like obvious ones that the players wanted or I thought were very cool. The world itself is homebrew, so I don't really deal with the different planes. I don't really deal with like some of the fantasy like aspects that are in like official lore, and that came down to me not knowing it. I don't really know the planes, and I know if I say we went to the Copper Hell plane, someone would tell me I'm wrong, and I don't know it, so I don't want to be super wrong. I could just make something way cooler. And in my opinion, we did. So we have different planes of existence, and that's just to cope with the fact that I don't know the rules very well, and I do not know the lore of D&D very well. That's never been something that was interesting to me. I always wanted to do my own stuff. The Call of Cthulhu one is a plant apocalypse, where eldritch plants have taken over the world, and it's set slightly in the future. We've actually set it in the north of Italy because the terrain worked incredibly well for a slightly contained area of the story we wanted to tell. And yeah, we went Call of Cthulhu on that because it was kind of more grounded in reality. Ignore the plant apocalypse part. A little bit more grounded in reality, and for Cthulhu, you definitely like... the system itself lends itself well to danger. Death means something. It doesn't mean anything in D&D after a certain level. Like, you might as well just like, oh, it's the same as getting knocked out. Like, it's kind of death in D&D, and I really hate that aspect. Whereas death in Call of Cthulhu is always present and always real. And it doesn't matter how far through the campaign you are, a combat is always fatal. It is always dark and grim, and the chance of death is incredibly high. And I love that. So, like, that's kind of like where we are on there. And the kind of the new system, the new game that we're running called Varduth is basic role playing, and that apocalypse is a zombie apocalypse based in Iceland exactly as it is now, except there are zombies running around and almost everybody is dead. And I don't speak a lot of Icelandic. One of my players doesn't speak a lot of Icelandic, but we have 2 native Icelanders and we'll figure it out.
Well, that could be, I don't know, no spoilers if you don't want them, but they could be tourists in the world of,
yeah,
right? I mean, there's a lot of tourism in Iceland, as I understand.
So, like, I was chatting with the guys, like, we were just like, hey, let's, like, because my partner and I, we built, like, a studio so that we could do more live play recordings with a group. We've done this a few times before. The audio has always been okay, but it's been so much work for our editor, Neil, that we were like, we need to build a better space, and we want to do this more. So let's build something where he's not going to rip his hair out. So let's do an experiment. The experiment being, hey, let's record all the episodes at once. Let me run a game I've never run before in a system I've never run before. I haven't even played this system. I mean, Call of Cthulhu is similar, but not quite the same. And I will write the story in a different way. I've never really done Monster of the Week before, but this is how I'm going to set this up because I think that's going to be incredibly interesting. It could be a lot of fun. So we're doing a lot of experiments on this, which is kind of why we ended up on basic role-playing, because it's really versatile and it's really similar to Call of Cthulhu. So we made some adaptations and changes to make that work. But yeah, we ended up with a family group, with one of the family members being married to an American. So that's how we've gone around that.
Oh, nice.
But there will be a lot of tourists because I just can't. The conceit is that there's a lot of tourists that survive the apocalypse because I'm not very good at Icelandic at all. And it is also fairly representative of the summer months where there are a lot of tourists here. So it was kind of like worked out fairly okay.
I was going to say something, the zombies were tourists all along, or the real zombies were tourists all along, something, I don't know.
Shh, don't tell people the theme of my show ahead of time.
Oh, sorry. That's a spoiler alert, everybody. I'll cut that out in post. Don't worry.
No, keep it in. It's perfect.
This is back to like Romero. Like zombies are always it's a critique of power of some kind.
Exactly.
Usually, yeah, for sure. I mean, the best zombie content usually is like the zombies themselves have a theme or an idea, and it is reflective of like today's society or today's problems, or they have like a something more to them just than we are scary. Can I pull it off in an actual play? I don't know. I'm going to find out.
With multiple languages. No, that's great. I love also the idea of developing the group who does these things together. And I was thinking of our friend here with another. So you have the Lucky Die. We know the people who do the playtest for Pathfinder. They're called Order of the Amber Die. Yeah. And they've also been doing it for like 20 years. And I was just thinking the Lucky Amber Die. Y'all need to do a crossover. But I remember talking with them about the idea of this troop, and you really almost like a sports team. Like you train people, you learn what people want and what they're good at and what they think they want to do. Because in order to get the deeper experiences, to really play test every aspect, but also have fun and develop characters, it's like you need to know each other. And so I was just thinking as you're saying this, that like getting in the same room and like woodshed and like doing it all at once, it sounds so fun. Like I feel like that's such a good way to do it. Yeah, like do the story all at once, you know?
Yeah, I mean, so like when we first started Lucky Diary, I was based in the UK, so I had to record at 3 a.m. most of the times because everyone else was American. And they weren't just all in New York, there was one in Texas as well, so there was time zone there. And then when our fourth player joined the crew, we had someone in Iceland, and of course when time zone comes in, we have 5 different time zones at that point. And then we had a German player come in, Swedish player, like, so we've done like a whole like gamut of like time related shenanigans that have come to like make things very difficult. However, for the Lucky Die, we thought we were going to be able to record the finale together. And we were like, this is something I really wanted to do. And the others were like, this sounds amazing. Let's figure it out. So we bought plane tickets. We got the rest of the crew over here to Iceland. And it wasn't the finale. So there's just like 20 episodes where we're just in the same room, not recording the finale. But it was an incredible experience. Like having those one-on-one sessions where I'm talking to the player and we're talking about, you know, becoming a god and like the experiences that character's having to leave mortality behind. It was incredible, like having that emotion right there and then where you can look someone in the eyes, which we can't do here. Like if I look at the camera, it looks like I'm looking in the eyes, but I'm not because I'm looking at the camera. It's very difficult to have that like natural connection, and I miss that a lot when I play. So we had that. Then we had the Sprout crew over like 2 years ago, I think, at this point, or maybe a year ago, and we were together slightly longer. Different crew, TLD and the Sprouting are slightly different groups. But we recorded like 60 episodes, which was, again, the length of the episodes that we had recorded remotely. So that was a lot, but it was amazing. Like the story was really consistent. Like the things we did were really like intense. We left it on a cliffhanger, which was hilarious because everyone had to go home on this awful cliffhanger, and I was like, what did I done? This is hilarious, but what have I done? So like recording together, there was such an energy compared to like recording separately. And we just love doing it, and we have to make a better space if we want to do that again with our other shows. So hence the experiment of just like, let's just get 4 people in a room and see what we can record in like 2 weeks and see if it sounds good or not, because there's nothing like an actual test to know whether something's actually going to work. So, you know, we might as well do it.
Yeah, I love the amount of effort y'all have put in, and I completely agree about like the eye to eye thing. I was just thinking of Errol Morris and the Interrotron, like the idea that to make documentaries, it's always mediated, right? Like you're asking people to look at a camera, and so like developing a camera where you could look eye to eye became like his signature style. And I was just thinking like, man, that would be so cool to have the real nearest future sci-fi technology where like it's not these little cameras in laptops, but like some other experience of playing games across, physical games, tabletop games, but like we could live in different countries.
You mean
but yeah, the ultimate
metaverse?
Solution is no, not that. It's gonna be made by socialists,
sure.
and not that guy. But yeah, no, I think it'd be so cool to be able to fly like that's one reason to monetize these things to some degree, is just to pay for like, plane tickets, right? To like get everyone together, buy beers, just to be able to kind of keep it going.
I mean, like for the Lucky Die and for the Sprouting, Atho and I are quite blessed that because we live in Iceland, we get paid better than basically anyone else, because Iceland have really good like labor laws. Like there are minimum wages that should cover basic existence. Not like here's a minimum wage, it's a piss take. It's not
crazy.
Here it is what you need to live, because if you can't pay your heating bill, you'll die in the winter. So how about we don't do that and actually pay people what they're worth? And also we should just pay people what we're worth, and Iceland is much better at that.
The American
so we're lucky
mind cannot
that,
comprehend.
I'm sorry, I'll pull back. I'm very lucky that some of us had like okay paying jobs. But yeah, like we had a Patreon and we've had it for many years, and that paid for the first set of flights for the Lucky Die to come over when they recorded. Atho and I put money into getting the crew over for the Sprouting. Luckily it was only 2 plane tickets and not 3 plane tickets at the time. And this experiment that we're running now, we only have to pay for 1 plane ticket because we were going to get 2 to bring other people into Iceland, but we have a friend who is an incredibly good role player here in Iceland, so we're just like, how about you get on the ferry and come over to record with us for a week? And he's like, sure, I'll book the time off. I'm like, holy shit, I just basically yes straight away.
That's awesome.
But yeah, like for us, like Patreon is such a lifeline to be able to pay for stuff. Like back in the day, I used to have an ice snowball, which just had no tracks or any like different polar pattern pickups. It was just one, and that was it. And now, thanks to us having our Patreon, if our gear breaks, which it has done, we can replace it without having to be like, oh God, I've got no money. Oh my God, you've got no money. Oh my God, what the hell are we doing? We can't record. And we had times like that, like especially back in the beginning. But now we're at the point where we're like, oh, hey, like we want you to come play with us for like X amount of episodes. Like I'll send you a mic. It may not be the best thing ever, but we can get you to record and it will sound good. So we're kind of luckily at that point, and we can pay for web hosting and hosting, which is really nice. So nobody's out of pocket anymore. And at least covering the basics helps so much. Because if there is a problem, we don't have to like panically like, oh my God, I need to buy like a $200 interface and I've got no money. We stopped the show essentially. We don't need to do that anymore. And I'm very grateful to our patrons and people who buy our merch and all this stuff, just keeping us afloat.
Yeah, no, that's incredible.
Yeah,
it's cool to see that you've over time built up a really supportive community as well. And I mean, that's a part of that longevity question again, right? Is like you just haven't stopped doing it, which we've talked to people on the show before who have ran podcasts or have done Kickstarters or even just like are doing well on Patreon as like TTRPG writers, things like that. And that's kind of the secret sauce, I think, that we keep kind of hitting again, is just like you just have to keep doing it. You just got to keep putting stuff out into the world, and then it will catch.
Consistency really is key.
And
the one of the joys is that like if you consider like if you start a new business, you basically have to treat it like a full-time job on top of your normal full-time job to get it going. So like if you put that time and effort in at the beginning, if you need to take a break later on, you have earned enough goodwill and enough trust to know that you will come back. So if you're 3 episodes in and you miss a week, or you're 5 episodes in and then you miss a month, and then you miss a month a bit later, or you miss 2, like you haven't earned the trust to keep your group, to keep your community together. And there's also not a lot for them to talk about if you dip out early, like frequently. If you are consistent in the beginning, then there's stuff for people to talk about even when you're not there. And you've earned that, we have had to do this on occasion. Like, hey, sorry, like we can't release an episode this week. We're all sick and we just don't have the energy to do this right now, or hey, there's been a major catastrophe and someone's had to like move house, so we can't release an episode. And our community is incredibly understanding of those things, especially if I'm like, hey, I'm kind of sick. They're like, yes, you should be sick, go to bed. Like we've kind of earned that, but you do have to earn it. You do have to get to the point where you have earned a break. And it sounds really awful, but it is unfortunately the situation. Like I don't think that should be how it is, but it is how it is. We've been very blessed that our editor Neil has just been an absolute powerhouse for producing our stuff, for like getting all the sound quality done, putting in and creating all of his own music, and getting them available for me to upload and put in the various places. So like he is our true powerhouse and our true king for getting stuff out on time.
You got to have at least one.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work.
Yeah. Chris produces our show, and I recently did one episode, and I'm doing 2 more just to help because we have this backlog of interviews we've done, and we're like, oh shit, we have all these friends
we got to catch up.
It's a good problem that people contact us who are cool, and we're like, yeah, we want to talk to them, but then it's a bad problem because it is like Chris's time, and we don't. I mean, this podcast, spoiler, doesn't make money, so it's like it's like asking a lot to be like, yeah, can you make this sound good? Bye. That's end of story. It's just like a favor. I hear you that Neil and your team, like doing the music, doing all that stuff. For AP, it's way harder. Like interviews, Chris, feel free to contradict, but interviews are a little easier, right?
No, this is light work. I think, especially again, like you're getting to Wythe in the context of APs or even scripted audio where you are going in and you're adding soundtrack, you're adding sound effects, you're, like really like dialing in levels. You're this part's got to be softer, this part has blah blah blah, putting filters on stuff. There's so much that goes into it. This is nothing, man. I make sure our levels are good. I normalize everything. I make sure we're hitting
the
right
ham air horn.
Make sure that the air horns get cut out. And
the cars in the background get ignored. So Kesser does like all the basic editing for Counterbalance. They'll get all the takes from the actors, choose what they want, put all the lines in the right places, add basic sound effects, decide what music to put in, and they'll send it off to an editor who isn't Neil. They've worked with this editor way before they joined Blighthouse and way before we knew them. And their editor Sarah Buczynski does an incredible job of getting everything to sound just beautiful. Neil, however, he's done AP for like probably 12 years at this point, including like doing all the music as well. So for him, like he started doing the show that shall not be named, which is a very basic edit, and that's how he learned. Like me, he too was lying. Very good magician, was vaguely interested in editing, now is an editor. So he kind of learned his chops on that. Then like we did the Lucky Die, and he does like basic edits, adds music in, and that's kind of mostly the extent of it. A lot of work, but mostly the extent of it. And then we started doing the Sprouting, and he wanted to be bold, dangerous. He wanted to try something new. So he started adding ambience in, which there may be regrets. Because
it's too late now, buddy.
In a scene, exactly, we're like 30 episodes in, it's too late, buddy. It sounds too good to pull back now. So like if we're in a room, all the voices that are in that room for the characters have the same sound effect to make it sound like they're in a small room or make it sound like they're outside. Like he does incredible work on ambience, but it is a lot of work compared to like, basics. And then partway through that, we decided to launch our non-fiction podcast called 4 Top 3s. 4 friends, 4 countries, 4 different opinions, ranking things in the most asinine subjects, right? And he's like, this was really amazing. Fun. After having done the edits of us live for TLD, this is nothing. This is amazing. I don't wake up thinking I hate myself. He's like, yes, this is easy. More. This is so easy for me to, because, once he has like the right filters in place, right. It goes in. I quality control and say what we need to cut out, which is what I do on most of our shows anyway. And then he may or may not cut, and I just decide not to cut very much. So he mostly shoves the ending on, puts the sound in for the beginning. And, Bob's your uncle, like, the episode's done, like... actually today I quality controlled and was like, please cut this section, and my outro is in there, and he's already done it. Like, this is like 6 hours later, he's already like done the final edit, which is just insanity compared to like the Lucky Dive. I'm saying like, can you cut this out? Yeah, that's hours and hours of work.
Yeah,
in comparison to like talk for him. Yeah,
this is this does bring to mind for me, I'm curious, for folks who listen to our show and who maybe are interested in doing AP, getting into that world. You've hinted at your kind of process and pipeline over time, but like, what does it look like from recording either in a batch or individual episodes, step by step? Like, how do you go kind of step by step getting to the actual publication and getting it on air, as it were?
Yeah, I get you. So recording remotely is our default. Like, we've talked a lot about doing it live, but actually recording remote is our default. Like, the Lucky Die's on like 283 episodes, only about 20 of them are live. So like, that's just kind of like where we're at. So generally speaking, I will prep usually for hours, for about 3 times longer than the actual thing. And that's just because I'm a slow prepper and I like to take my time and think about what I'm doing. I'll spend loads of time doing that. Then we have to have the headache of a schedule, because we have guys out in the States, we have us here in Iceland. And if, for example, we have people working Saturday through Wednesday, and then we have people working Monday to Friday, if they do that until 5 p.m., it's about 9, 10, or 11 before we start recording in Iceland, and that's just too much. So scheduling, do not underestimate how much scheduling will kick you in the ass, especially over the years that we have done this. We had a very set time and it was great, and then people got different jobs, and then we have all moved houses, and we've all like had maybe partner changes, and some of us have moved a lot. So like, life really does over time kill your scheduling. So do not underestimate scheduling. Right. Assume we've got it all right. We turn up, we record on, we all record our files locally. So we'll record it in a DAW, a digital audio workspace. In our case, most of us use Reaper. It is free. You should probably pay for it after some time. Hey. But Reaper is the bomb for many reasons. Yeah. You can also use Audacity. The learning curve is a lot less, but you can do a lot less with it. Reaper top dog.
Reaper, top dog number 1.
Yeah, absolutely. Because and this has happened to us, if you lose power in the middle of the recording, you don't have to rebuild every tiny little thing that Audacity makes you have to rebuild. So it kind of like writes and saves about the same time, so you don't lose anything if your computer dies halfway through. It is a godsend. So Reaper all the way if you can do the learning curve. There's plenty of tutorials. It's worth doing.
I record agree locally. Entirely. This podcast also edited and mastered in Reaper. It's like the Linux of DAWs, and it's totally worth the learning curve. I just want to echo what Hem is saying. Yeah. If you do this stuff, do it in Reaper. It's fun.
Yeah, definitely like spend the time learning it, because it is absolutely worth it. Oh my God. Just in the comment that's popped up and I know who it is.
This is from @Abby Zinn. Reaper is the GOAT.
Abizin.
Oh, Abizin.
Yep.
Abby Zinn.
So yeah, like we record on Reaper, and we do that locally. The way that we talk to each other is through Discord, because it is again free. You can do it through things like Riverside or StreamYard, or you can even have Clyde. As a bot that jumps into Discord and records all of the things separately. We don't do that, and that's solely because our editor is a purist. We will record in .wave, we will record in 44.1 hertz, or we will go F ourselves. That is our recording format, because essentially Wave has much higher information. You only need to record it in mono. Nobody's mics are stereo. Do it in mono, save yourself some effort and some room. And because anything that goes out generally on Spotify or iTunes will crush your audio down to 44.1 hertz anyway, so there's no point getting 48. 48 is mostly for movies and TV. So we record in that format. And what we do is that we start, we basically just do the story. We don't do any intros or outros or anything. It's just the story. And I will keep an eye on the time. At about 55 minutes, I will start looking at a nice place to end the episode. So like at the end of a scene, rather than dead 1 hour or forcing it to be 1 hour. Like, we've always decided the story comes first. So if that ends up being that we have an hour and a half episode, we have an hour and a half episode. We don't worry too much. But there is a school for thought that says stick to the same amount of time and don't make it too long, because too long can put people off, but really long is sometimes someone's jam. So your choice. We decide to go story over everything. Once we have finished that episode, I will say, I think this is about time to stop the episode. We stop our recording, we save it under the episode number, and then we start a new recording or start a new episode. And the reason we do that is partly because it's easier to edit. You don't have to figure out where to cut everybody's lines or where to start and restop anything. Gives time people to go use the bathroom if they need to use it, or grab a drink or whatever they need to do. And also, and again, this has happened, if someone's computer dies, or someone has a power cut, or someone has like, oh my God, there's an emergency, you don't lose hours and hours of recordings. You maybe lose one episode. So it is much better to record individual episodes. At least that's how we do it. And then at the end of the night, we all send our files to the editor. It's based all on our NAS, our network area storage. So we all upload it to the same place, the same file format names, so that it's easier to like find all the episodes when you're trying to do the edit, rather than 400 different ways of spelling the same thing, standardized. He would then take those, he syncs them up based on how we like start a recording, which is like, all right, everyone, 3, 2, 1. And that's how we sync everything up, because there's always lag and delay. It just helps our editor a lot to do that. He will sync everything up. He will go through and run lots of passes of various things. He'll do manually running through and cutting out things that he thinks are crap. He'll go through and cut out things that obviously just like, hey, like someone actually had to answer the phone there, let's cut that section out. He'll go through and do a lot of those edits. He'll like shorten the silences, because they can be quite long when you're recording remotely because of lag again, or because someone needs time to think. If there's over too much rules, he might cut that. So once he's done all that cutting, he'll send it to me as one file, and I'll be like, this is crap, cut that, this is crap, cut that, dude, that's the funniest thing ever, please put it as a blooper. He never puts it as a blooper, spoiler, it's always stuck in the episode. And then I'll send that back to him, and then I'll also tell him if there needs to be any voice actor lines, which sometimes we do. So sometimes if I'm doing a voice and I'm like, I need someone to be a dragon because I sound really weedy, so let's get an actual really good British voice to be a dragon. So I do that. And I write the script and I'll send that off to them and get the lines back. But I'll tell him that there is a voice actor line in there. He'll go through, he'll make any changes, and then he'll start doing a music pass where he adds in basic music. So he's like, this is what I'm feeling. What do you think? And I'm like, ooh, this is really good because I'm not a musician and I think it sounds all right. But sometimes I'll be like, nah, this is kind of really rubbish, like restart this. There's very few times he's a very incredible musician, but there are some times. So we'll go through and do the music pass, then I'll QC that again to make sure it actually does sound good. Make sure we put the voice actor lines in. I'll record the intro and he'll put the intro in. Whoever is on the outro will record the outro and thank whoever is the ad swap, like, hey, we've got an ad swap from Why Reroll, you're about to listen to it, enjoy. And then the ad will play at the end of the episode, and he sends that entire file in MP3, because Spotify and all the other podcatchers want it in MP3 at 44.1.
So annoying.
So
it's so annoying.
It is unbelievable. They will refuse it if it's WAV, and they will crush it if it's anything other than 44.1. So he sends that to me. I create a video to put up on YouTube, and then I will upload the episode to our Patreon because I get early access, and write the episode description. And then it will also go into our distribution platform, which for us is Megaphone. And I'll again put in the information, make sure everything is labeled correctly, schedule it for the right day. And then I'll do the same thing for YouTube. I'll just copy and paste the description, put it on YouTube, schedule it for the right day. And then I lean back, I'm like, it's time for another episode to QC. So that's kind of like, that's our actual play cycles. It's a lot of work, but that is kind of what we do.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it's great to hear, because we do some of this, but you guys are doing the full suite. I mean, with voice acting, et cetera. I mean, again, we're doing interviews, sort of meta level, designing RPGs, but yeah, all of that work. I mean, it is a lot of work, even like writing the show descriptions and doing that well, scheduling things correctly. Yeah. We've had issues in the past with just like basic tech, key stuff syncing up, and when the more services you add, the more opportunities you have for there to be like, I don't know why that's not working today or whatever. So it's great that you guys have a team and obviously years of experience. But it's also great to have that little compact summary of kind of like some technical things to consider, like a workflow, basically, like how are you going to work together to actually get your AP from we like playing games and we're good at it to someone else can enjoy it.
I always recommend, because like a lot of people just reach out and ask me, hey, I'm about to start an actual play, like I heard you're like really happy to explain podcasting. They're like, strap in, I've got you. But I always tend to start with, do like 4 or 5 episodes, get them recorded, get them in the can, and then get them to the point where you're about to publish, because a lot of things will fail very early, and it will be usually around episode 3 or episode 4, because you don't know if you actually enjoy editing. it sounds like an incredibly easy job, right? Like you record it, you shove it in the thing, you maybe make some cuts and then post. You can't just post because editing is actually a really difficult job. Getting it to sound good is a very difficult job. And you can, and there is always a market for it, shoving your iPhone in the middle of your table and recording it. You can do that. Some people have made really good jobs on starting that way. But if you really want to make a go at it and you want it to be more than just okay, more than just slightly better than a college try, you need to respect your audience's time and their ears. So a little bit of work goes a long way to improving your podcast. So I'm always like, try everything from beginning to end, get those 4 or 5 episodes done, because then you'll know if you enjoy the process. The process is what kills so many podcasts. They don't enjoy editing. They don't enjoy posting. They don't actually enjoy writing episode descriptions or interacting with fans or doing social media. A lot of that just kills the process and the fun of recording, and it's the fun of playing that we're here to get out into the world. If you can't find a workflow that works, and especially in a good amount of time, it will kill you. Also because, if you record 1 hour and you find it takes 6 hours a post to get it to sound good, you know actually how long it takes to do these things, because you always think, it will take 5 minutes. It never takes 5 minutes. There's not such thing as a 5-minute job. That's always the thing I when people ask me, is like, do this thing first and get a backlog. Holy Hannah, get a backlog. We've had times in the past where we were recording on a Sunday night and releasing on a Tuesday. That is no way to treat yourself or your editor. Get a backlog. We are very blessed that we spent a lot of time on the Lucky Die, where we just focused in and got a bunch of episodes done, to the point where we finished recording in November. The finale was done for November just past, and the last episode comes out in June or July next year. It's such a relief to not know you are doing it up to the wire. That also, relieving that stress also helps a lot.
Yeah, for sure. The backlog thing, we were complaining about it earlier, but it is a great problem of just having a lot of content to work with. For a news show, a topical show, it turns out to be, we realized, somewhat belatedly, a detriment.
Yeah,
it's
not ideal for what we're doing, but we're gonna do
current events 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, no, well, it's starting to be like current events 3 months ago, which is why we're sprinting now. Yeah. But we're gonna get caught
up. It's
all gonna be current. We're gonna be like right in the moment. We're gonna be in the zeitgeist.
Yeah. Chris, it feels like something from an 80s, 90s Matt Berry, like BBC4 show that you would have shown me recently, like them talking about events as though they're current that happened a long time ago. So anyway, but the backlog is great. The backlog is also fantastic advice, because there's also, I think, a kind of psychological cliff where, you're not sure about something. And when you've done like many episodes, like I think there was a point, Chris, when you and I were like, holy shit, we've done like dozens of interviews and they've gone well and people were nice and interesting. They weren't, not just that we did them, but that we felt we gained something out of them as designers. And that gives you, I think, the confidence to keep going. So I imagine with narrative creation, it's the same, right? It's like playing games with your friends. If you try the first time and they've never played RPGs, you're not sure, but by the 10th time you're all meeting to play and everyone's having a great time, you're just fighting scheduling at that point. They want to do it. It's like anything else. It is that consistency point, just to underline it. Yeah.
I also just want to tack on.
Remember, like, your first episode might be crap. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah, that it probably
just do it. Remaster it later on.
Yeah, you can re-release it. It's fine. Nobody cares. They do that with bad recordings of albums all the time. It's great. Yeah. I was also just going to tack on, with editing, with working with Reaper or your DAW of choice, whatever it is, just don't give in to the temptation to let AI edit for you. Don't do it. Don't ever use those tools. Yeah. It's bad. It's going to make you dumber, and you're better off actually learning how to do the thing. And also, once you give them your content, it's not yours anymore. So just putting that out there for anybody because I've seen AI editors and it makes my skin crawl.
Yeah, you can almost always tell. And it usually comes in like when people are speaking and then they do the natural breath afterwards, or they're speaking and there's like, the word is elongated into the breath. They'll just cut it and it sounds atrocious.
Yeah.
And also you lose a lot of nuance. Just if you want to learn how to edit, learn how to edit. Because it's like most engineers these days don't really need to know how to calculate the area under a curve, but if you know how to do it, you know where you're allowed to break it. You know where you can ignore. So having the basics, even if you don't use them later on, is such a help to actually be a master and not be like, I have built the most amazing house on 1 2x4 upright. It's going to fall over. You can get away with it for a while, but you will eventually become a fool.
A fool. Or what did you said a word earlier, louts. You were like, yeah, a bunch of drunken louts. I was like, I never used the word lout in my daily vocabulary.
Such a good word.
And I was thinking the other day, I want to stop calling people like dicks or something like that. I want to start being like, oh, that's that knave, that lout. So thank you for that.
See, you're welcome. My British Asians often get me in trouble with my friends because they're like, I don't know what you just said. I'm like, I'm not being Cockney. It's just what we use.
Right. That's just Tuesday. Yeah, I mean, no, and that's a great point too about AI. So Chris, thank you for bringing that up. And I do think to your point, Hem, it relates to the 10,000 hours, right? And like, if you're taking shortcuts, it's not just, I think I was thinking in my head, is it similar to the old canard about, Picasso's blue period before, inventing cubism along with Braque, and de Chirico et al. But I think it's more basic than that, because it does change the way you think. And it's not necessarily bad that technologies continue to evolve, but it seems like we're in a mad race to adopt AI sort of in all our cultural, making and sharing and consume. And it's like completely replacing these whole strata of like being an artist, consuming art, just giving a fuck. So beyond like financial impacts and all that, I do think it's interesting that it's slightly different than the usual, like, well, you should probably learn the basics. It's like, yeah, that's true. And also you probably shouldn't like give your brain over and all the content you make over to giant shady tech companies that are also, spoiler, going to run out of money like this year.
I mean, like, so like AI scraping our podcast has happened, right? So there were like random companies out there that would just be like, oh, I have gotten hold of your podcast. I'm going to scrape it, put it on my platform and charge people to listen to it. And all of our content is already really scraped out there. I don't want to freely give it to the AI master overlords. Like, you don't get to have this without actually having to do the work of getting your ass and scrape it. So if you're going to do it properly. Don't let me be the person handing it to you.
At least take the time. At least show me the respect to take the time to look it up on your own. You lazy mother.
Be a human and scrape me like a troll.
You don't even have an attention span anymore. This is what AI's done to you.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Oh, man. It's crazy. Don't use it. Anybody listening to the podcast, please, God, don't use it. Or do use it so much so that it breaks its own infrastructure, because there are some people that believe that could happen. I don't know. I'm not here to tell you. I'm not going to make that. I'm going to cut this part.
Will you though? I think
we always have the joke like, Neil, cut this. He never does.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to make a joke about like Molotov cocktails and certain CEOs, but
oh yeah, that might get the video just like down voted. Right? People just won't see it. Yeah, parody. No, but also, and I know we should probably wrap up soon, but and Hem, be respectful of your time. But also, you've mentioned the editor more than once and other collaborators, and I think it's interesting that you guys do have this real troupe kind of, like you're all bringing ideas, but you also do have some specialized roles there. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say about the role of kind of writing, designing, and when you're playing versus GMing, or really just producing and kind of, I don't know how that's worked over time. Maybe you could say just a little more about what Blighthouse is or wants to be, even like the name. I just realized I have no idea why it's called Blighthouse. Maybe you just have to pick a name for your podcast network, but yeah.
So one of the other hardest things when you're making a show, apart from like figuring out what the show is or what it's going to be about, is figuring out a name. And we really suck at finding names. So Blighthouse went back and forth for so many different iterations of like, it's a completely different word. It's a thing. Is it going to be studio or studios? Like, what are we going to do here? Like, what's going to be? And eventually I pulled the executive because I am the lead producer. I am the person with the biggest whip and the hardest drive to just go do even the boring stuff, make sure things are on time, like get things edited, schedule. Like I am the organizer. That's what I do. I produce. That's a friend of mine once said a producer is doing the jobs that nobody else wants to do. That's what I do. And yeah, eventually I was like, all right, we're calling it Blighthouse Studios. The end. This is what we're doing. And then we're like, okay, well, let's go secure all the social media handles because we at least have to have them. Even if we don't use them, we don't use them. So we went to get the website, blighthouse.studio. We can't get blighthouse.studios. Well, I guess we call blighthouse.studio then. So that's how we eventually settled on Blighthouse Studio. Blighthouse Studio is the thing. Essentially, what we did is towards probably a couple of years ago, myself and Athel, we were talking about wanting to do a new show and do new this, that, and new that, and make podcasting like a more central thing in our life. And we thought about the people we wanted to work with, and the people we wanted to work with was Neil, who is the editor and a player, an incredible musician, Kesir, who is an incredibly gifted writer. Like, they, German is their native language, and they write fucking beautifully in English, like incredible. They also are incredibly gifted, like graphic artists. In their day-to-day job, they essentially do like, those IKEA pictures, but for actually bigger projects and things that aren't crap. Like they do that for a living, but they're also an incredible artist. They're a digital artist. They're a graphic artist. They do a lot of website work. Like they are really good. And us two, myself and my partner, and Neil and Kesir, we were like, these people are really driven. Like, they really want to make something, want to tell stories. They appreciate the art of what we're doing. This isn't content to us. This is art. And the same thing for them. And they're driven. Like, they're proven. So we grabbed them together and like, hey, we want to do more shows. We want to do things with you. We want to help get Counterbalance back on the road because Counterbalance had to take a massive hiatus. And, we want you guys along for the ride. This may not work. We may produce shows and it just be crap and we never speak to each other again, but we want to give it a shot and we want you guys on board. And they were like, yeah, hell yeah, we're on board. So then we reached out to the other two in the Lucky Die, like, hey, we're doing this thing. Do you mind if we put Lucky Die under this? And do you want to be a part of this? And we're like, hell yeah, just make sure we're included. So even though they're not as active, they just wanted to be included. And now, like, Arch, who's one of the players, has written this incredible story called Venture Rift Online. It's an isekai where a guy falls into his own, like, video game. And there's, like, a whole, like, two-sided nature of it, like what's going on in the real world versus what's going on in the digital world. And it's amazing. And I'm so proud of what he's written. And we've got voice actors in and he's cutting episodes right now. And it's amazing. Casey is about to start another podcast that I can't really talk about because it's very, 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 very hush right now until we get episodes recorded. And I'm so stoked that that's also a thing. And, and Blighthouse, we've also created, one extra talk show that we've never thought about. The Sprouting is like under Blighthouse. That's like our first real show that we properly produced that wasn't just us dicking around and having fun. And we're about to record, Varus, our, basic role-playing game. Like, we're about to record that and put that into the world. So yeah, like, we just wanted to tell stories and have people that will support us so that we aren't just doing everything from scratch. Like, it's really hard to start a podcast when you don't have people helping you, supporting you, or guiding you. And, Arch has never written before, so he worked with Kesir. He's never produced really properly before, so I've helped him a ton everywhere that I can. And, like, yeah, we're working together to tell the stories that we want to tell. And that's just why we exist. We want to tell stories. We want to make art. We don't want to make content. So that's kind of what we do at Blighthouse. Other than our talk shows, they are just content and just an excuse to hang out, basically.
Well, I mean, you gotta feed a little something to the algorithm. You gotta give them a little face time.
Just a little something. It's also just an excuse to hang out and actually just talk as friends versus everything being a recording or everything just being like, a business talk. So like, it's nice for us to be able to record that and just have little effort to get it out into the world. So
also random suggestion. We do have a friend who does Perfect 10 where they pick one Perfect 10. Chris and I both been on a great show because it's like 2 hours on just like, why is that franchise or whatever good? So
why is this your Perfect 10? Why is it your favorite thing?
Wow.
Yeah. I think 4 top 3's Perfect 10 should be an episode just because
that's a crossover waiting to happen.
Once again,
right?
That's good. Waiting to happen. That's good. We'll put his people in touch with your people.
Yeah. Get him to contact our people. Me. Do that.
And collect some more nations because he's in Canada. Not to dox him. I know, Chris, you're not big on not doxing people with the second largest landmass on Earth.
Hey, listen. He doxed himself when he wrote for Guide to the Abandoned World, published by Stillfleet Studio. by us.
Oh, right. And confined himself to basically the west coast of Canada somewhere. So again, it's a small area. I'm sure you could find him. I'm sure you can find him. Chris, to be mindful of time, do you have any other substantive questions before we ask a traditional last question and I hand it over to you?
No, I mean, I was going to say, before we started recording, we were talking about Nordic LARPs, and how, Wythe and I, that's something
true.
that we only recently in the last year really learned about. And Hem, you had mentioned that was kind of foundational for you in some ways. So I am actually curious, like, maybe if you could really briefly explain what a Nordic LARP is, and like, has your participation in those affected your story writing or how you've approached AP? Is there any kind of like a little bleed there?
That's a great question, Chris. Yeah.
So that's a fantastic question. But I came across Nordic LARP, funny enough, when I was running my Exodus Fallout game, and I had an NPC that was supposed to be a PC. We were supposed to change the GM. We never did. So the PC that I made just became a GM NPC, and they wouldn't let her die. So she continued. I started having a lot of bleed through from the character. And I was like, I don't, if I'm looking at my office, I shouldn't be figuring out how to, turn everything into a weapon. She was a psychopath. I'm like, maybe there's some issues here. So I started Googling around online, and I discovered Nordic LARP, which is a very intense role-playing LARP. Like, it's live action, you go out, you do your things. But it's very intense. Like, the point is to have, like, experiences that really get to you. Like, be really happy, be really sad, be really terrified, like whatever it is, like it's supposed to be a proper experience that feels as real as possible. And they had this beautiful article talking about bleed in and bleed out. So my emotions affecting what the character does, and who the character is affecting who I am, bleed back out. And it's about building a wall between them. You always hear well, my character did that, not me. That's an excuse. There's always a bit of you in the character, so like grow up. So like there's always a little bit of that, but like the Nordic LARP kind of like really makes you like question what was an experience, what was the feeling, and you can experience these things in a safe environment because you can always say stop. And that's the end of it. Like that's the end of that. And kind of like reading through that, like the after game is as important as the game itself. The after game where you sit down and you kind of like talk about like how things went, your experiences and your feelings, establishing boundaries for next time, or even doing that beforehand. It was a whole set of safety rules to keep you as a person safe while having as most intense role-playing experience as possible. So when I started live streaming my games, and when I started running games like other than my Exodus game, I started being like, hey guys, I don't have many boundaries when I roleplay, so say the things that you do or don't want to do, and if we're playing something and I go too far, just tell me to stop or call me an asshole. Like, we understand that. It's totally fine to do that. So I started like building in those in most of the games I started playing. And having done that for both of the actual plays that have been recorded, the other one's about to be, I kind of like start off with like, hey, is there anything that you don't want to include? Like anything you don't want in the story, even if it's themes, ideas, or whatever it is. What do you actually want from the game as well? Not just like, what don't you want? What do you actually want? And working with my players before we start hitting record or before we start playing our game really helps me make a game that is tailored for them, because I'm not doing subjects they don't want to do, and I am including things that they do want to do. So yeah, Nordic LARP I haven't done, but I have read a lot about it and has really informed the way that I start, prep, and run games. Because it's important to have those discussions, It's one of the things that really helps you, aside from the safety issues, tell a story that your players want to play and feel invested in. One of the slight issues with modules is that it's really difficult sometimes to shoehorn the character in and make it feel natural. It's like the Call of Cthulhu thing. Your third character has nothing to do with the story anymore because all the threads that were there are now gone. And it happens quite frequently in Call of Cthulhu. So I'm just like, I don't enjoy that aspect as much, but I love the system. So yeah, like having that conversation beforehand helps you to tell a better story that your players want to play, because it's covering stuff they want and it's avoiding stuff they don't want. It's not difficult. Just do it. Or play a module and still respect everyone's boundaries. Like either way. So yeah, that's my experience with Nordic LARP. It was reading a really interesting psychological breakdown on how to play.
Gotcha. Well, I misunderstood earlier, but no, that's super interesting. And I mean, it does bring to mind, like Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we've talked a little bit about bleed in, bleed out with some other guests on the show. We've talked about safety tools, things like that, and even just like the idea of consent while role playing. What does that look like? Makes me think. We keep pitching these panels on air. We should have like a kink community TTRPG like safety, consent, and bleed through panel. I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah. I also think there's something with horror with approaching, like the concept in math or physics of the asymptote, right? Like infinitesimal and infinity, and how can these be? There's a thing happening basically in math and physics right now, but called ultrafinitism, about people debating, is there infinity at all in the universe, or is it impossible to have real infinity? And there's simply very, very large numbers, and the question is how big do they get? But there's something about this in art when you're trying to like see how close you can get, right? Like that's a whole nother, okay. But how close you can get to, dude, we need to find some reason to have a weird crossover with actual scientists. But yeah,
that's easy.
My point is, you can get close to things and not touch them, and that's actually a different thing than going there. So with horror, right, you could like gross someone out and have them be offended at the table, whether it's a podcast or just your friends. Or you could get really close, and in a way that I think tends to be creepier. And I have a kind of theory about that kind of uncanniness, and I think it would be fun, Chris, to your point, to like talk about it in the context of both safety and consent, but also like good GMing, and good storytelling, where you're sort of establishing. Like I say this in part because I often ask. Not because I don't care. I just, ask it in a fast way. It's like, does anyone have anything they don't want to see? Do you want to message me? Do we want to talk about anything? If not, because what I found is with our players, at least, who come to play grid system games on our Discord, usually they say, no, I'm fine with whatever. But sometimes they'll say something like, I don't really love graphic descriptions of bugs, but I'm fine with mentions of bugs. Then I'm like, okay, what's a mention? Or what's something under erasure? So I'm not trying to fuck with them. I'm just in my head, I'm immediately like, okay, wait, there's a lot of bugs. How often can I mention what aspects, like what makes a bug? So blah, blah, going down a rabbit hole.
You
but
start
Chris,
talking
I love
about
that idea.
You start talking about chitin, it's over.
That's an ultra anti-chitin person, but we should turn it over to you, Hem. But it sounded like you had a response before we close out. So
it was you reminded me some especially tables you've not played or GM'd anyone with, especially like cons or whatever it is, conventions. Your safety tools may look different table to table. Like you don't necessarily have to sit down and go through the safety kit that is available online, which is, pretty good for folks who've never played together. But if I were to bring that to my group of boys, they would laugh their asses off at me and just tell me when they're uncomfortable. So you don't have to have like a deep talk every time, but at least an acknowledgement. If you need me to stop. Like that's often enough for friends and family. But some groups do want more, and you should respect that. Like that's just easy enough to do. No, when you were talking about bugs, it reminded me of a friend of mine when I was GMing still back in the UK. He's never played D&D before, and when I was doing like, hey, is there anything you guys don't want? And he said, yeah, I don't want a cult or demons. And I'm like, oh, buddy.
Well, that's
do I run this game?
That's a big old ask. That's kind of fundamental to a lot of the practice of fantasy gaming.
Yeah, and I mean, lucky enough, I don't run modules. I was very uppity. I was very pretentious when I first started. I'd never do a module. And now I'm just like, hey, people have jobs. Let them do modules. It's basically what it comes down to. Different experience, bunch of friends, who cares? But everything I do when I run games tends to be homebrew in some way. So it's easy enough for me to go through my rough outline and go, all right, no tieflings, no demons, no occult shit, and just cross them off the list and just replace it with something else, right? You can replace it with Asmar. He loved Asmar. That was great. Cool. Great. I'll put them in there. I'll make humans the bad guys. Oh, super easy, guys. I've got this. They're not occult runes. They're letters. Nailed it. So it's easy enough to like re-theme stuff if your friends don't like a particular thing. So, if you're doing a bug-based problem and someone's like, I really don't like 6-legged bugs or millipedes, just replace them with something else. Make them like really small gazelle or something. Like, people will understand that you're making a change, but it will work.
Yeah. I mean, that just
great
kind of,
advice.
That is great advice. And it also, I don't know, thinking about like the occult thing and the Asmar, that would also just put me in the same headspace that Wythe you get into where it's just like, okay, well, what is a cult then? Like, why do Asimar get a pass, but like I can't do like a literal deep, like what are we talking about?
Tiefling, just a little tiefling, just one.
Give me one tiefling. Come on.
Well, and it raises the question of this another is a sandwich a taco question of cult and religion and sect, and how big do you have to be, how much trust what percentage of what nation put into a group before it is sort of not a fringe belief, and obviously I don't say that to offend people, but it is that same problem of mentioning a bug versus grossing someone out just by saying the wrong word, right? So I think at GMing, the deeper point is that it's always like that. It be like that about literally everything at the table. When you make a rules adjudication and you decided that was a weak success, and the player really thought, I feel like I nailed it based on what you said and what the role was or whatever the resolution. It's like, it's kind of always a game of like managing expectations and doing a little bit of like, am I hearing my players
and that's on like
correctly,
all sides of the table, right? GMs, players, and other players at the table. Like it's always like that kind of dance, their song and dance. And this is the one thing that I don't enjoy quite so much about actual plays because it's recorded. If I make a rules thing and later on I change my mind, like, the next episode or something, that's usually a hassle to have to re-record. I'm not gonna lie, it's a pain in the ass. We have done it. We have scrapped 2 entire episodes because I hated something that I did, so we just reset. And it was only 2 episodes, so it wasn't the end of the world. But in a home game, you can just be like, hey guys, I realize I screwed up, so we're going to pretend that this happened, and then you move on, which is really nice. And also, compared to a home game, compared to something recorded, your players forget things between sessions, and so do you. It's okay. It's totally fine. Can't do that on recording. I can't forget things. I can't be wrong. My own lore has to be consistent. It's really difficult.
Or you live in a shifting Dechirico maybe-verse where everything is always slightly different. We'll find out. Hem Brewster, thank you so much for joining us. Chris, I'm going to toss it to you for the traditional final question. So Hem can go to bed.
That was a great problem-solving moment. That was beautiful, Wythe. All right, Hem, our traditional final question. Where can we find you? Where can we find Blighthouse Studios online? How can we best support you? How can we get folks listening to your podcast? What are your pluggables, as the kids say?
So we don't do the socials.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, she says I did a long time. It was not worth our at all effort. Unfortunately, audio only podcasts on social media, the return on investment, the amount of time and effort you put into it versus what you get back is less than 1%. So screw it. I'm going to spend that time doing literally anything else. But you can find us by searching literally any of our shows. The Lucky Die, The Sprouting, 4 Top 3s, Counterbalance, Venture Rift Online when it's live, Varuth in the winter when it comes out. You can also search Blighthouse Studio and you will find our website, which links to literally everything that we do. You can support us by going to Patreon. Patreon/Blighthouse, probably patreon.com/Blighthouse, whatever. You get the idea.
Yeah.
And literally everywhere that you search and find our episodes, you find on our site, you will find our Discord, and our Discord is where our people hang out. It's where we have an incredibly good community. They are so nice. They are so welcoming. They're all a little bit crazy one way or another, but we love it. There are incredible memes that are being made by one of our Discord members called Flapjack. They have me dying of laughter every single time. So yeah, we have a lovely community. All of us hang out in there. We'll all happily talk to you about almost anything. Yeah, so it's search for us, Blighthouse.studio. You'll find all our shows, you'll find our Discord link, you'll find our Patreon link, and that's where you can find us.
And not only that, we will have links in the show notes for you as well. So if you are listening to this on your favorite podcast platform, give us a 5-star review. Tell your friends and family. This is what podcasts do, right? But also, you can look in the show notes.
Do the 5-star thing. Yeah. It's really important.
Actually, that is important. Not only
do other people get to read it and be like, hey, some people put effort and time into saying this show is worth a damn. Also, it makes these guys feel good. Do you know how good it is to see a 5-star review with someone saying, this show is incredible? Just do it. Do it to show a little bit of love to these guys, even if you don't care about other people finding the show. Tell them you love them. Do it on the reviews.
And listen, we are starved of dopamine. We need We need your
We need
attention.
a little serotonin. Come
we
on.
need your affirmations.
They passed that dopamine restriction in Texas, right?
Yeah,
So
they
there's only
did,
so
man.
much
It's bad.
dopamine
It's
to go around.
really. I'm going.
It's bad.
I'm going through
Red
withdrawal.
states, yeah. Well, Hem, thank you so much. I want to say it correctly, and now I don't know how to say it. Abizin?
Abizin.
Abizin. Thank you so much in the chat.
It's this guy
Hem
over
Brewster,
here.
thank you so much
nice.
in the chat on the screen. And of course, Chris, thank you so much as
They can't
always.
see.
You.
Please check out all Blighthouse Studio pods. I definitely am going to check out the Sprouting because I love plants and apocalypses. And we
plant-based
will be back with
apocalypses.
more Why We Roll and more apocalypses very soon. Hem, I hope our paths cross. I hope we can do some sort of, maybe even some actual play swaps or something. Because we don't do that
will
much.
work out
so
more shenanigans, don't worry.
we will do more shenanigans. Until then, it's Why We Roll. Cue theme music.
There it is.
That is a smooth outro, mate.
Dude, we nail it every single. As I hit my mic, we nail it every single time. All right, bye everybody. Thanks for listening.
Clicking the button.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Why We Roll.
Our theme music is by the brilliant Sam Tyndall and Arpline.
If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You can find us on all social media at Stillfleet. You can find out more about Danse Macabre, Stillfleet, and all of our games over at stillfleet.com.